Hi guys, my name is David Cruz. We're about to start here with Third Ladder, celebrating their 1 year anniversary. I am signing on from Naomi's account, and I'm obviously not Naomi. So 1 second. About to get Rachel and Naomi here. And here!
Hello.
Hi guys.
Her account was not hijacked. She really is here.
I'm this random dude.
Oh gosh.
Some troubleshooting for some technical difficulties.
Yes.
Get though.
We
Look at
made
us.
it. But is it here?
Thank you guys for joining in. Looks like you had a lot of people join in, waving, saying hi, a lot of love. So today, big day. Today is the 1 year anniversary of Third Ladder, making it 1 year, and we are celebrating. We are so excited for that. Are you guys, Ruth, are you so excited?
I think it almost feels surreal. We all had breakfast together this morning as a team, all four of us, and it was just, I think that was a special way to start the day. But I feel like for all of us, it was just feeling so thankful and really just almost trying to sit in that space and realization of like, wow, this happened and we're here.
Oh, it's so awesome. I know you guys are so proud, and you should be. It's so great just to see kind of what God has done over this last year. It's just amazing. So we have a couple questions. Lots of people signing on, lots of love, which is so awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and hit you guys with a few questions. But if you guys have questions in the chat, feel free to write it on there, and we'll try to get to it if we can. But yeah, let's shoot off. So why did you decide to start Third Ladder?
Well, I mean, it's not the way a nonprofit, I think, typically starts. And maybe everyone's journey is different, but, a lot of times I think a nonprofit starts with a dream and a hope and a vision. And a lot of people kind of know our story, but, we were originally part of another organization and department that was closed. And it was a very heavy and hard time for us as a team. So I think, when I think of how Third Ladder started, it's a bit of a combination of grief and just like experiencing that together, but also this great sense of love and duty, I think, and history and relationship. And we had these projects that we had been working with for years, and we do our best to share about them. But for us, there's deep relationships, there are friendships, there's history of love and trust, and we knew that without starting something, the ripple impact that would affect each of those people that we knew, and then those that they were serving. I mean, it's livelihood for so many. And so I think for us, it was just this sense of we can't just let this stop. I mean, this is something we believe in so deeply that I think each felt called to, and just didn't feel like it was done. But it was not with a great sense of excitement. I think it was a lot of kind of trepidation and really holding each other at different points. And I think even our projects holding us at times when we didn't have faith that it was going to work. And, it was a step at a time. So just to be at this point feels miraculous in many ways.
I think, and when Rachel uses the word, it's interesting to hear, like, even when she used the words love and duty. And when I think about it in two ways. Like, I think there was this part of us where we were even saying this morning, like, honestly, there wasn't this big meeting of like, hey, what should we do? Let's come up with a plan. Like, it was like, this was the next right thing. Like, we love these projects. We care for them deeply, and just feeling, as she said, it was love and duty. And there's a movie I love, it's The Painted Veil, but there's a line in that movie where she says, when love and duty are one, there grace abounds. Like, I think for any one of us, nobody really wants to be just seen as somebody's duty. So I think the duty part for us, it is just this human responsibility, but also human privilege for caring for other people along this, messy journey called life thing. And so that was the duty part of feeling like we knew the situations they were in. We knew many of them were already working with underfunded budgets. Many of them would be on the brink of having to shut their doors, and that just wasn't okay. And we felt like we had the responsibility to try to step forward on their behalf. But yes, we have a genuine love for them. So for us, it was the combination of those two. But as I think about this when we're talking, like there is that separate way to speak about it. There was a song playing this morning actually when I was getting ready. It was a Brandy Carlisle song, and I thought the lyrics really spoke to the second piece of it. I think when you're in the midst of when life feels like it's shattered, and the foundations of it have kind of been pulled from you, I think the lyrics are, let's see if I can remember it, but it's when the hope that you held so tightly to has vanished and there are no words of comfort to be found. You learn what it means to be lost and without love. May you fight against its thundering sound. But then there's this next line, but the holy dreams of yesterday aren't gone. And even when the morning brings you sorrow, and it's that but, right? That I think for all of us, there's so much in life that happens that is beyond our control. And it's that but part where you're like, you have choice here, you have voice here, you have agency here. You can't control all these other things, but you do have to choose who you are going to be within that space then. And I think there's a part of like, I can lay down and die, or like I can try to move forward. I think for me, like, when things like this happen in a very public space, the harsh words that are out there resonate deeply, and it can be so easy to let them be your guide. And actually for me, like I would honestly try to picture Chitra, who runs Agni Raksha, the project in India. It would be their faces. If I were standing in front of them right now and I were to say, hey, we just had to stop because A, B, and C, like this was so hard and this was so painful. That's just not good enough. That would not be good enough to hand to her. And it was her face that I had to picture. Like, what would I say to her? Like, what do I want to be able to offer her in the midst of this? And that is like, we're walking forward with you, whatever that looks like and however God carries us forward, but we are in it. So.
Oh my God. I just love it. It's so true because we don't always get to decide what comes at us, right? But we can decide how we respond to it. And I love that because that's so true. It's like, okay, we don't know what's around the corner, but how we respond, we're responsible for. Yeah. So I love that. Love and do. Come on. You're just preaching so good. I love it. I love hearing you guys' hearts. Okay, so I got another question for you, and it was actually asked in the chat too. So what is the meaning behind the name Third Ladder?
Yeah. Okay, well, so the latter part came first. A dear friend of mine, Craig Hawkins, did a charcoal drawing, and it's a beautiful layered piece, so I won't explain all the parts of it to you, but a very significant part of the drawing is this golden ladder. It's a man holding all of these books, and you can't see his face, but there's a ladder. The books are on this ladder that are leading up to the heavens. It's this connection point of earth and the heavens. And when Craig describes it, he talks about the inspiration behind it and Jacob's ladder and that significance of that story and this picture of God extending this ladder down that's connecting the heavens and the earth, and this golden ladder who is ultimately the person of Christ. But it's that sense of God creating bridges and this invitation inviting us towards him. But in that extension, he came down and he gives us the opportunity, I think within the bridges, we get to be part of that. We can serve as that bridge to point others to that ladder that will carry them outside of the suffering of this world and into a significance and purpose beyond what this life can give to them. So that was the ladder part, and with kind of the awareness that all of us at times need the ladder, and we all have the opportunity to try to point others to one to help them in the depths of their sorrow and their grief. Third is the significance. It's the spiritual significance of the number 3. So it's used many times in the Bible, and from our understanding, it represents, so it's used in the Bible when it's representing significance or emphasis, like you have holy, holy, holy. So words are used 3 times to emphasize, but it also symbolizes new life. And so that's what we were drawing for. And I actually recognize patterns in the Bible with that I've never seen before, whether it's in the Trinity, the three persons of the Trinity, that wholeness in there, by even Jesus's resurrection being on the third day. And I learned from my reading that in Jewish culture, you were not considered officially kind of pronounced dead until day 3. And so that then, to me, that would have had something to do with why Jesus had to wait to rise until the third day, because it had to have been like that level of death and devastation for it to actually be resurrection. So for third ladder, drawing from when there is death, there is resurrection, and the hope that that offers to all of us. So there you go.
I love it. That's so good. And kind of, you shared a little bit about it, but it seems like, what is the vision behind Third Ladder, and what makes this nonprofit unique?
Yeah, I would say with that, kind of our heart is really to connect people with these organizations that we support. And that, our desire has not been to kind of narrow into one specific type of humanitarian issue, but to rather kind of have a broader reach. So you can identify, like, if you're really drawn to organizations that work with trafficking, like, you could find specifically an organization that we've already vetted that you could support. And even, with that, like, on our website, we have like the budgets of each of them. So our hope is that, you could connect very personally. Like, if it's that you want to support counseling for one woman, like, that cost is there and you could connect in that way. But another piece that I think really makes Third Ladder unique is that we aren't running these organizations. We are really just doing the due diligence. So our role is to identify these international organizations that are meeting just a very real humanitarian need, and then to vet them. We take them through a pretty extensive process with vetting them. And then once we've kind of taken them through that process, then putting them out there to the donors. So there's this, as best as possible, kind of assurance that your funds are then being used and monitored in that way. And then we do a continual, once we kind of are under a like a contract with the project, we continually are reviewing, and we do an annual site visit. So, our hope, there's a couple of things there, but a lot of the organizations we support are very grassroots. I mean, these are run by locals in those countries, some in very rural places, and things that we're able to connect people with, and just to really find these unique things, that you may not be able to just find necessarily on your own, and to know that vetting process is in place.
That's awesome. Way to do the work to make sure the funds get to the right place, and doing all the hard work, because I know a lot of people want to be reassured of that. So it's awesome. What has the journey been like for your team over this past year? But give us a glimpse.
Oh, I would say so many ups and downs. So many ups and downs. I think, kind of as we were saying at the beginning, and even as we were saying this morning, I don't think that we had the ability when we started to even see into the future enough to this point. It was just so much a step at a time. Like, we're just going to keep taking a step in that direction, and just keep going. And so I would say our journey has held extreme moments of just hardness and feeling, overwhelmed and doubt. But on the flip side, we have clearly seen, I would say, just the Lord's provision, and what sometimes has felt like manna for today. Like, there's enough for what we've committed to. There's still questions about the future, but I think it's probably increased our faith in that way. And then even just a level of ownership. I mean, we have ventured into things that we knew nothing about as far as running an organization, and just with each thing that we've accomplished, there's just a high level of ownership and pride of figuring something new out. So
yeah, I mean, when we were part of a larger organization before, so those things are designated to specific departments. So from the beginning, one thing we did try to do that I think has been helpful for each of us is we have tried to, and somebody actually gave us that advice in the beginning, make sure you celebrate the what seemed like small things, but they're not, right? The little milestones along the way. So even when we got like our EIN, I remember like that felt significant, like getting, you know, the paperwork for that, learning to do those things. Those kinds of things are, we had departments that handled those before. Now as a small startup, you handle all of that from start to finish. And so we all played to our strengths. It was a team effort with everything to get these things done. And it was so important to us that they were done the right way, that every detail was. And so you carry that weight of that. We just like filed our first 990 a couple of days ago. And let me tell you, that felt really significant, both that we're at the point to do that, but, you know, working with the CPA to get that done. So those are things that were not necessarily part of our, you know, our job descriptions before, and you know, that became something we needed to learn, and to not just learn but to embrace. So as Rachel said, I think it has been ups and downs. I don't even know if I realized until this morning when we were all talking and looking back and realizing it was a year, how much of it, I mean, we were aware like this was a step of faith, but how much of it was so like we couldn't even, I think she said, like you can't see far in front of you. It really was like just one step at a time, like Lord, take us through this day, and then you get to the night and you're like, you got us through another day. We're going to wake up tomorrow and we're going to do it again if you give us the opportunity to do that. And it really just has been that. It's been, I think, stretched us to a new kind of faith, where, and I think from the beginning, there's a fear, right? I think our standards in society, how do you define success? So when we started it, like, to be honest, there was part of me where I thought, but what if this doesn't last very long? Like, what if we can't make a go of it? What if, you know, what if it doesn't have like longevity to it? For me, like it was these projects that I believed in, and it was my team. Like I love my team. Like I love the people that I've been able to work with, and wanting and just feeling that. But when you feel that care, there's a sense of responsibility there, right? And almost a weight in that, like not wanting these people to be hurt. And how do you step forward in a way? How do you take risks when you actually can't guarantee they won't be hurt either? And that's hard, I think, to hold that tension. But I think being able to do it together and trusting God with each day. And I finally reached a point where it was like, you know what, if the Lord, this is God's, like we all, like we really dedicated this to him. This is yours. And if you give it 6 months, if you give it 60 years, it will have been a gift, because we will just do it as long as you put it in our hands and call us to do that. And realizing that definition, that was a change of the definition of success. I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody out there, you know, it's just trying to follow what we feel like God has put before us. And that then in itself it will have served a purpose.
That is so true. That's so good. The manna for today, and faithful with what you're given today.
And he has, I mean, we have said, like, because, you know, with startups and grassroots, like Rachel and I look at budgets, and you're like, okay, we've got enough for, you know, this long, and, you know, you're not looking that far down the road, right? When you analyze those things. And so there have been moments where I think, okay, you know, Lord, you gave this to us. We've been able to serve as a bridge for these projects, to extend some support for them. You know, is that what you intended for this? And like literally within 24 hours, I mean, now a handful of times this has happened, where we get a call or an email out of the blue from a partner or friend who says like, hey, I'm sending this in tomorrow. We didn't approach them about it. We didn't ask for it. And then you just say, okay, so we keep going. All right. You got us to next month. So we keep going.
Absolutely. I love that. It's beautiful seeing that scary obedience when people take that loud, like, oh God, what if the world says we fail? But you've called this, so we're going to be obedient. And Lord, step, we're going to be obedient in that. And just seeing your hearts and your faith in that, it's beautiful. So
if I can like add one thing to that, just because I get this picture in my mind, and let me just say too, I think what we've had in the team, like even like Rachel, like we'll actually never know like what she has like given to my heart, just the opportunity to do this together and with Jennifer and Amanda. I think as much as you want to sometimes like crawl into a hole and almost die inside, like when you have this like small group, this team, it does keep you alive a bit, even if it's like because there are these other people that you want to be alive for, not because you think they need you, but you believe in them so much, and that you see things happening in their life, like, you know, something good happens in someone's life and suddenly like I felt happiness today because I was able to celebrate something, you know, for this person. Like, so I think it really has helped us even through our own kind of the emotional weights of it. But there's a story in the Bible that I do now get this mental picture of, and I'm not a theologian, I don't know all this means, so you know, try not to judge me if you think I'm off here, but the story of when the Israelites are crossing the Red Sea. And it just stood out to me in this last year when I was reading it. It talks about the pillar of cloud, God, the Spirit of God being in front of them. When the Egyptians come from behind, it says the pillar moves from the front to the back. And then me, I'm like, okay, it's the Spirit of God. Why don't you just make two pillars? So they can still see you in front and you're behind protecting them. But that isn't what he did. And I don't know like what it has meant to me or what I've drawn from it this year is how terrifying that must have been for them. There's water on every side and now you can't see him in front anymore. Like you've been following him and now you can't see him because he's behind protecting you, you know, from that. But that the act of faith that it required was then stay the course. Now you can't see him, you can't follow him, so stay on the path he put you on and just stay the course until he takes you off of that, and trust that he's, you know, he's behind in a protection stance and defense stance right now. So I often carry that picture forward in my mind. When we can't see very far in front of us, he put us on this path, we stay the course. That's the job.
Awesome. And that's so true. Thank you for sharing. That's really good. Here's the next question for you. Can you share a story from one of the projects that has impacted you?
Sure. When I think of this, probably the first one that pops in my head is Word Made Flesh, which is in Bolivia, and they work with women who have been trafficked, sexually exploited. And this organization, the way in which they do it, I just so deeply respect, because their heart is to honor them. And when they go weekly into the brothels, and they're very intentional about their goal is not to rescue these women. They do offer, there's a lot of different services they offer that if women want that, but more than anything, they go to be with the women and to show them that they're seen and they're loved. And, you know, when I go into those places, people often ask and assume, and rightly assume, that it's dark and it's heavy. And it's very much true. I mean, there is a tangible darkness that you feel in a place like that, you know, where there's just women lined up and just men circling. But I think for me, one of the first times that I was there, it was just a very clear aliveness that I felt, and a reality that this is where Jesus is. Like that to me, in those circumstances, I think my faith has literally felt more real than probably any church service, where it's just that very like, it's almost holy to me that this is where he resides. This is where he would be if he was walking on this earth, is right here with these women, and showing them for that moment that they are seen and that they are made in his image. And so that is just something that I think that I have carried with me. And I've been so fortunate, you know, I get to visit the different organizations we support, and see the work in action. But in each of them, there are always those encounters where it's just this very real, for me, it's just like where my faith, I think, becomes the most alive, is just in seeing. There's another organization we support in India called Little Drops, and they work with elderly who have been abandoned on the streets. And the founder there, he calls it Church on Wheels, and he will go and visit elderly who, you know, have been abandoned. And I'm just like, I feel this there. It's an interesting dichotomy, I guess, that there's such a there's tragedy in each of these organizations that we support. I mean, the level of tragedy and just levels of despair are very much there. They're not gone, but there's also just such real hope and beauty and opportunity, I guess I would say too, like opportunity for us to for our faith to come the most alive, and even just as humans to be able to engage with people in that way is just, I mean, that's so much better than anything else that we could choose to do, in my opinion. Like, it's just so life-giving, and to be able to connect with someone else like that.
That's awesome. Gosh, I love that. That is where Jesus would be, right there. Beautiful. So here's some of the logistics, but what is it like when you visit the projects? And I saw someone else ask a question, like how often do you get to visit the projects? And I'm sure travel's been a little bit different lately.
Yeah. So with COVID and starting things that yeah, things have been a little different, but typically in the plan and the routine is that it's an annual site visit. So we go, and we both have gone a decent amount. So it's annual that we go, someone from Third Ladder will go and be on the ground with each of the projects. And so behind that, there's time with, with the directors and looking at their financials and just kind of getting an overall picture of the organization, but also speaking with different staff and always having some time to actually see the work in action. And so it's, as I said, I mean, to me, it's the highlight. I think what we enjoy are probably all aspects of the work that we get to do, but to actually be on the ground with them, I think is, it's where the real joy is.
Well, and there are just certain things, like you can never get a full picture from a website. So that's always been something really important to us. And one of the things that we do feel like is distinct is that there are eyes on the ground on behalf of our partners. And that's one of the key reasons why we exist and a purpose that we feel, that we have to offer. So they do get site visits before we adopt them as projects. And there's a fairly extensive application process that people have to go through and submit several documents, 3 years of their financial history, for example. And so we are looking for specific areas to support, but we're looking for the overall health of the organization as well. Financial health, the operational health, the methods, and the impact. So both, verifying that there is a legitimate need, but then the way that need is being met. So we do a lot of the paperwork side beforehand and the interviews beforehand, and then that last step is the site visit before we go under contract with them as a project. And then, as Rachel said, there's an annual on the ground visit, but that's just the in-person piece. So every month there's a report that they submit to us. We do financial reports every quarter. So we're reconciling the budget they provided at the beginning, the funding that we agreed to give. The funding goes out, the grants go out in increments so that we are measuring, we're doing a check on the actuals before we send out each next grant. And Rachel does Zoom calls on a regular basis monthly to be able to touch base with the projects as well. And then there's that in-person time. And yeah, I think that's where you get a feel for certain things that you just can't determine on paper.
I'm sure. That's awesome. Very cool. So now that you've reached your first anniversary, what are your hopes moving forward?
Reach anniversary number 2?
Yeah.
I
think part of honestly, I think is there's the part that obviously that you pray for and you hope for, as far as some of the more time that the organization has and the more we are able to grow and that support system grows, that you're not necessarily operating at the same level of, I guess if I can use the word stress for, are the funds going to come in next week? So yes, you hope for you can go longer stretches and you're not operating at the same level of intensity, because it is hard to exist kind of at that high level of it. And at the same time, though, I can look back and feel like it really has, it's just always, it's required that we keep our focus in the right place. And there's just been no other option but that. You can't get distracted from that. You can't, I think for all of us, it's just been such an awareness of who's actually got this, and it's not any one of us. We want to be, we want to reflect him, we want to be those tools in his hands and feet, but this is ultimately in hands bigger than ours. And I think we face that reality literally on your knees. And so I'm grateful for that. So I would actually say, I hope we carry that forward, no matter what lies ahead of us, and as we still aim for growth, because that's what's best for the projects. There's so much need out there. I think for us, there's always that, you celebrate the gifts when they come in and the grants when they go out, and you're still at the same time so aware of the gap that remains, and how this need is still out there. And so, and I think because there's a genuine relationship for us with these projects, we know them by name, like we know the faces, we know the stories, like they aren't just reports and they aren't just, organization name and numbers. And so you feel the weight of that. But we wouldn't want that to be different. So I think those things we want to carry forward. I do hope there's growth for it, because I actually think what we see when community comes together here and what can be done, together for, and realizing we're all part of this human walk, but that responsibility again toward each other and what it calls us to, what you recognize in yourself. I mean, I was saying when love and that quote, when love and duty are one, there grace abounds. And yet I feel like we've been the recipients of the grace from these projects, and from the people that we've been able to know, just some extraordinary people and lives. And so I think we want to see that growth because the global need is tremendous. But I hope that we also would be our desire to hang on to that personal approach with the projects, that we do know the names and the stories, the community between the four of us, the level of trust I think we have in each other and the way we operate and see each other in it. I think as an organization, you have a responsibility outward, but inward too, to see the humanity in each other. And so to continue to walk with those kinds of values, I think, and hold on to that faith. And I, again, like that line, like the holy dreams of yesterday aren't gone. And so we hang on to those visions no matter what seems to be falling down around us.
Absolutely. I love whenever you're just talking about, like, of course you want to be comfortable because that's what the organization needs, or it needs to grow for it, because you can't live in that desperation, but you want to keep a glimpse of that desperation faith in you. All yours, Lord. And I love it. You said it's in bigger hands than your guys's. And I love just hearing you say that and know that, and just that, Lord, this is yours. And we're trusting you for the next step and the next breath. So,
yeah. I mean, I think
so
what I can say about the team, I mean, this team, everybody's in here because they believe in it. And I just want to, I think too, like that's, when you recognize that in each other, like everybody's worked second jobs, everybody's, done what they needed to do because they believed in this and to still participate. But yeah, as you said, like there's still these basic kind of needs at the end of the day that, that you also have to hold and be able to manage, and seeing what everybody was willing to do for something that they believe in has also been sweet.
It is beautiful. It's beautiful seeing it come together. So here's the last question for you guys. So how can others get involved? How can we make Third Ladder grow to reach more, to do more good for the kingdom? I
would say right now, probably one of our biggest needs is just getting the word out there more. I think that, we're still a new organization. So I think if people share things that we're posting, or tell your friends, tell your network, I think that is actually something that could really help and go a long way for us. And then obviously there's plenty of opportunity to give and to connect that way. We've seen in the past young people kind of adopt and do a fundraiser specifically for a need. I mean, there's a lot of different opportunity for all levels of giving to connect and get involved. So yeah, those are a couple of things.
Yeah, and I think we've loved that about the support that we have. The ones, and we go through this list, like we know the names and we've gone through those numbers and how much they mean. And those gifts, like the $5 gifts, those gifts mean so much to us. Like we actually single those out, and you see those, and I mean, I think you just appreciate the sacrifice somebody's willing to make. But there's sometimes where you even wonder what's the story behind that, because it does speak to a level of sacrifice too. Yeah. But that's honestly what's, that is what it takes to keep something like this going. You need, that blend from all levels. We don't all have the same capacity and the same, can't give it the same levels. We don't have the same talents. We don't have the same skills. And that's why you come together, because you're stronger when you're operating together. We've got a matching grant going on right now that some friends and donors offered to match up to $25,000 leading up to this birthday. So through the end of the day today. And before we got on this call, we were at
Yes, 23,000.
So we're so
close.
We're so close. Yeah, we're almost there, but we're so grateful. And again, just seeing that, and that has been this beautiful mix of gifts too. And I think for people to realize that too, when we see that and we see the $50, the 75, like that's what's helping us get there. So please know like how much that's appreciated. And and it's just been a kind of a joy to see these things happen. And then I wish you guys got to be part of it when Rachel makes those calls or the emails to the projects to let them know when grants are coming to relieve this need. I mean, their gratitude is amazing, and it's truly beautiful, and it's you all that make that possible.
That's awesome. Well, you guys are getting a lot of love, just in everybody joining and waving and asking questions. And I know that this is just a small glimpse of all the love that we are pouring out to you guys. I'm so proud of you, and just saying, just keep going. Any last words before we sign off?
On behalf of Jennifer and Amanda, we tried to recruit them to do this with us, and they they were very willing to let us let us represent. So we're thankful to get to represent them, and thank you to all of you. Thanks for those who joined. It means so much to us. It's good for our heart and souls. Yeah. So thank you for letting us feel part of your life and your story today, and being part of your world. So thank you. And thanks, David.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you, David.
But love you guys, and go Team Third Ladder.
Yay, thank you.
Thanks for signing on, and make sure you go support Third Ladder right now, and let's finish this day strong. All right.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.